On the other hand, I love my wife, but I couldn't pair program with her 8 hours a day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Real Agile or BS. I'm Peter with my wonderful colleague, Agile Bob from Agile for All. We love answering all of your wonderful Scrum and Agile questions. And today we have one that's kind of on the periphery of Scrum and Agile, but is talked about, and probably many of our listeners and watchers and subscribers have heard of this before. It's this idea of paired programming. Now, for anyone out there, paired programming simply is two developers, one box. It allows them to do multiple things at the same time. They get to correct each other, verify the work, review the work together. And so many people, especially let's just say management in my experience, have often had consternation and a little bit of tension around this whole idea of, wait. We're going to have one computer and two guys sitting at it. I feel like I'm losing the ability to have value created quickly. I'm losing headcount. What is this all about? And obviously the question we always want to answer here is it Real Agile or is it BS? Bob, I'm going to hand it over to you first and foremost. What do you think? Pair programming, Real Agile or BS?
Well, I think it has to be Real Agile. It's the simple example of going all the way to mob programming, where you've got multiple people working in one box, and that's also been proven to work. It seems counter logical, I guess. Two people doing the work that one person used to be able to do. But as I tell people in my classes, we are way past the days where you could lock a programmer in a room, throw Jolt Cola and pizza under the door once in a while, and a miracle would happen. And you'd end up with a great product. We're not in that world anymore. So it's way more complex. I also mentioned in my classes, Peter, that in 1970, when Dr. Royce wrote his paper about waterfall, a large computer system that he was talking about, because it was managing the development of large computer systems, a large computer system had 64K of RAM. How many gigabytes do you have in your phone in your pocket right now, right? At least 1 million times more memory now. So things are way more complex than they were in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And you and I were just talking earlier, management, the further they get away from the actual work, tends to have a view of the work that it's easier than it should be. Well, management is generally older people who grew up in that paradigm where a single person could accomplish a lot because it was easy to do. Now it's not so easy. So the things you mentioned, two sets of eyes on it all the time, so better quality. Somebody who understands the logic of the project and somebody who understands the bigger picture, working with somebody who's narrowly focused on solving the problem, that can give you a more well-rounded solution. My personal story on this goes back to when I was a vice president at an internet firewall company. And as you can imagine with a firewall, if you have a bug, it's bad. People can get through the firewall. And so we would fix bugs, as quickly as we could. And our problem was about 5% of our fixes fixed what we thought was the problem, but the problem still existed. Mm-hmm. Not good. So we went to pair programming for all bug fixes and effectively eliminated that problem. So for me, paired programming is not just at Real Agile, it's real programming. I think it's really a good way to accomplish things. On the other hand, I love my wife, but I couldn't pair program with her 8 hours a day. So I like to take breaks from it. So when I'm working with teams, I say anything complex, anything you need to have multiple eyes on because you need multiple people to do it, and anything that's a bug fix, those three things pair program all the time. But if it's something dirt simple, give yourself a break. I mean, that's my opinion, not widely shared. Obviously, the XP people are like, oh, horrible, you can't do that. But I think there are times when you need a break from pair programming just because we're in a world where a lot of people are introverts and it's hard to be on that much of the day. What do you think, Peter?
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of paired programming from a pragmatic, experiential side. As myself as a developer, I've paired programmed many times with other individuals. So I think it's not only agile, but it is the best way. It is the best way to do any type of code in today's world. And I appreciate you adding into that context there, Bob. In today's world, we work on really ridiculous, multifaceted, multi-integration, complex adaptive systems. Now, that's That's a mouthful, but all of it is true. Right now, with one of my clients, we are connecting supply chain to IoT, to blockchain, to software and financial services. This is not something that's complicated. It is complex, and it requires a multiple set of eyes. I'm going to grab onto one of the things that you talked about around burnout and pair programming. Absolutely essential. I wrote 3 notes down here that I usually talk about whenever we get into paired programming with a client or even in a training session. Is the 3 things that I think is really important is number 1 is the who. Who are you going to pair people with? I love the fact that you brought it up here, Bob. It's exactly my mind's eye, which is, hey, make sure that you're pairing people, one that has a high level and one that's maybe even a lower level or in the trenches. Having 2 developers of the same skill set, I have found tends to create a lot of tension because they have different ways of doing things. One of the reasons one of the values of pair programming is leveling up junior or intermediate programmers and developers to higher levels of excellence. So figuring out who we want to put together is really important. Number 2, rotating. And this is the kind of the burnout idea, is that as much as I might like this guy for maybe this sprint or a couple sprints or whatever the working agreement's going to be in terms of pair programming, man, sometimes you end up with guys that's just oil, water and oil. It just doesn't work out. Your personalities, the way that you communicate isn't great and isn't effective. And so rotating those responsibilities or rotating through those pairings is a great way to ensure that you don't get burned out and you don't get stuck with someone who maybe you might not work well with. And number 3, retrospect the pair programming experience. How can we improve it? How can we share with the rest of the organization what we're doing and the value that we get out of it? It is a hard sell. And Bob, I'd love for you to speak on this as well. In my experience, it's been a pretty hard sell to clients to say, hey, I would love to move to this pair programming idea. It's not necessarily have to be 1 box, 2 developers, but I really want the intentionality of these engineers to work together and to communicate together so that we have a spreading out of the knowledge of the code base and the architecture, et cetera, but also we can level each other up and grow each other. It's often a hard sell. So I want to ask you this question, Bob, and I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that are listening and watching that might have this question as well. How do you sell pair programming? And maybe if you have time, how do you sell mob programming? Something that I almost never have brought up with a client because that's like 5 developers working together, too much focus. I don't know if I can see the value in that. At least that's what the managers say. So Bob, I'm going to throw it over to you. How do you sell pair programming to leadership and management effectively?
Well, I think the sale is multifaceted, right? I mean, the first part is, do you want higher quality? Because 2 sets of eyes will get you higher quality. So if they're struggling with quality, the sale is a little bit easier. I'd rather go slow and get it right than go fast and get it wrong. So they're making the assumption it goes slower. Therefore, I'm playing right into that and saying, yes, it will go slower, but your quality will be dramatically higher. And by the way, we're not just talking end customer quality, but will your QA process speed up because now more quality is being created earlier? You're probably going to end up with a net win actually at the end of the day. And that's really where pair programming shines. 2 people writing the code, going to take longer in terms of total hours paid. Absolutely. But when you add on the total cost of ownership, where you have QA and everything else added on the end, it's going to be lower. So we have to go to the dollars and cents of that. There's data out there around those things. I think it's 15% longer to create the code, but dramatically faster in QA, and therefore you get a net win or something like that. Lori Williams, a long time ago, wrote a book on pair programming. I'm quoted in it, so I know it exists. But it just helps a ton. And Peter, getting to your other point, how valuable is it to get people up to speed, right? How valuable is it to be able to hire people and get them to the next level right away? Because you can throw them in the deep end of the pool when they're pair programming. And I tell people, let the less experienced person be the one doing most of the work with the other person that's experienced, watching what they're doing and correcting errors. I can't count the number of times when the experienced person looks over their shoulder and says, wait a minute, why'd you do it that way? And they explain it. And the person's like, that's great. We should have been doing that way the whole time. We just didn't even think of it. Exactly. Because people get stuck in their ways at a company. And so the new blood kind of gets you thinking outside your little box and makes it be your box is this big or even bigger, and possibilities open up. So I think it works really well from that perspective. And then the last way that I the last way I tell people that this kind of closes the sale most of the time is, what would happen if Peter gets hit by a bus? Because if you didn't pair program with somebody, Peter, and you get hit by a bus, we are SOL, right? I mean, we got a problem.
Yep.
And so that helps get rid of that hit by a bus problem. And every executive recognizes that's an issue. And they want to get rid of that issue, but they don't have a way to get rid of it because it means hiring new people. Well, no, it means pair programming, shared code ownership. Peter might be the best at this, but if I've paired programmed with him, now at least I have a chance to do some of it. And if Peter has pair programmed with someone else, or I've pair programmed my specialty with someone else, we can at least share it at least a little bit, enough to survive the catastrophic event. So when you take all that together, most people are willing to try it. And then when their teams try it and it turns out they can do it well, that kind of seals the deal.
I'm with you 100%. I often have some excerpts from Stuart Ray. So W-R-A-Y. So if you anyone out there, subscribers or viewers, Google Stuart Ray, you'll come up with his website. It's got some great literature and data, just like Bob talked about, that supports the value long-term of paired programming. So I'm a I leverage heavily Stuart Ray's writing when it comes to selling and when it comes to communicating the overall value of paired programming. And I recommend everyone out there also check that out. Guys, we are not always right. And you guys might have differing opinions. And so we have a great place for you guys to put those opinions. It's in our Agile community site on agileforall.com. So make sure that you check it out. For everyone else, thanks so much for this episode of Real Agile or BS. I think we can agree here, Bob, that paired programming certainly is one of the best ways to program in today's complex system and complex world. And I think we both agree it's absolutely agile. But you guys, let us know your comments. If you disagree, you can comment below. You can also, again, check out our Agile community site at agileforall.com. We'll see you guys on the next one.